بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السادة الحضور، نرحب بكم في أمسية جديدة من أمسيات الندوات المنشورة على شبكة الإنترنت لأكاديمية نسيج. وخصوصية ندوة الليلة ليس في موضوعها الذي يتناول قيمة ودور الثقافة المعلوماتية والإعلامية في عصر المعلومات وما بعده، ولكن في ما يشي به هذا الحدث من قيمة تتجسد في الشراكة الاستراتيجية بين أكاديمية نسيج وجمعية المكتبات والمعلومات السعودية، والذي يشرفنا فيها وجود رئيس مجلس إدارة الجمعية وأستاذ علم المعلومات المساعد بجامعة الملك سعود، سعادة الدكتور فايز العتيبي. أهلا بكم، نرحب بك. وهذه الندوة هي باكورة التعاون بين أكاديمية نسيج والجمعية، وهي أتصور بداية قوية. ولدت هذه الاتفاقية والتعاونية كبيرة بأهدافها، كبيرة بالمجالات التي نسعى إلى توطينها والتعاون مع جميع من يهتم بقطاع المكتبات والمعلومات، أكاديميين وباحثين ودارسين في بث المعرفة والمعلومات. وليس أدل على ذلك من الضيوف الذين سوف يتحدثون في هذه الليلة، ولن أطيل كثيرا في هذه التقدمة، وأعطي الكلمة ليس ضيفنا ولكن شريكنا الأساسي سعادة الدكتور فايز، لأتلقى منه الكلمة بعده مقدما لضيوفنا. تفضل سعادة الدكتور فايز.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين، نبينا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. بادئ ذي بدء أتقدم بخالص الشكر والتقدير إلى أكاديمية نسيج على هذا التعاون المثمر بحول الله عز وجل، والذي نبدأه بباكورة تعاوننا هذا المساء بتقديم هذا الويبينار الخاص في تعاوننا مع أكاديمية نسيج. أقدم شكري وتقديري أيضا للدكتور عبد الله متولي وبقية الزملاء والزميلات في أكاديمية نسيج على الاحترافية الأكثر من رائعة، اختيار موضوع أكثر من رائع في وقت ثورة المعلومات. الجميع يعلم ما هي قيمة الثقافة المعلوماتية في الوقت الحاضر، في وقت ثورة المعلومات. الأهمية كبيرة في تقليل انتشار المعلومات المضللة والمزيفة، وبالتالي الحد من الانحياز والتضليل الذي يؤثر على قراراتنا واعتقاداتنا. أيضا تمكيننا من الاستفادة الهائلة من الكم الهائل من المعلومات المتاحة عبر الإنترنت وغيرها من المصادر الرقمية، زيادة قدرتنا أيضا على تقييم المصادر والتحقق من صحة المعلومات قبل الاعتماد عليه. هذا بإذن الله عز وجل راح نأخذه خلال هذا الويبينار في مع الدكتورة إن شاء الله بيجي. وأنا حقيقة لو تسمح لي دكتور عبد الله، أنا ودي أتكلم بالإنجليزي ترحيبا لضيوفنا الكرام. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to Dr. PG and Dr. Clara for their kind gesture in organizing this webinar, which focuses on an important topic, especially in these days of the information revolution. So welcome Dr. كلارا، دكتور بيجي. وأكرر شكري وتقديري لأكاديمية نسيج، ونعدكم إن شاء الله عز وجل بتقديم جميع المحاضرات، الندوات، الدورات التي نحرص بالتعاون مع أكاديمية نسيج على أن نضيف لحضراتكم، نضيف لطلابنا الأعزاء سواء طلاب بكالوريوس في التخصص أو طلاب دراسات عليا، وأيضا للمهنيين، وأيضا لأعضاء هيئة التدريس اللي بإذن الله عز وجل راح يستفيدون من مثل هذه الدورات والمحاضرات. يستميحني الدكتور عبد الله أن يقدم له الآن الدور لتكملة هذا الويبينار.
شكرا سعادة الدكتور فايز العتيبي. وقد إيه نحن بنسعد بمثل هذه الفعاليات التي تعكس هذا التعاون وتتطلع إلى مزيد من التعاون. بإيجاز شديد بأؤكد على أن هذه الندوة مذاعة على القناة العربية باللغة العربية، وسوف أبدأ بمقدمة باللغة العربية سوف تترجم على القناة العربية باللغة الإنجليزية، ثم أعطي الكلمة لضيفتنا مرة أخرى الدكتورة كلارا، وهي صديقة ولها كثير من أنماط التعاون بيننا. ولكن فلنبدأ على المحتوى بشكل بسيط. نحن في هذا العصر، عصر المعلومات، نلاحظ أن هناك تطور متسارع وجديد، ولعل التكنولوجيات لم تعد بس فقط هي الدافع الوحيد، ولكن أيضا نمط التعاطي مع الثقافات المختلفة، وفي مقدمتها الثقافة المعلوماتية والإعلامية. أصبحت هناك أنماط جديدة من المهارات التي يتعين على الأفراد على مستوى التخصصات المختلفة، وفي مقدمتها تخصص المكتبات والمعلومات، أن يتعاطوا معها وأن يكتسبوها حتى يضمنوا النجاح في المعيشة والعيش في العصر الرقمي. الثقافة المعلوماتية والإعلامية أتصور أنها تركز على تمكين الأفراد من الوصول إلى الوسائط والمعلومات وتحليلها وتقييمها وإنشائها أيضا بطريقة مسؤولة ونقدية، وبالتالي فهي تزود الأفراد بالأدوات والمعارف اللازمة لاتخاذ قرارات حاسمة والمشاركة بفعالية فعلا في المجتمع بشتى أبعاده ومناحيه. وتشتمل الثقافة المعلوماتية والإعلامية على مجموعة واسعة ومتنوعة من الكفايات والقدرات، بما في ذلك فهم كيفية بناء الرسائل الإعلامية وتحديد واكتشاف الأخبار المضللة أو المزيفة أو المضللة أيضا، وتقييم المصادر بشكل نقدي، إضافة إلى مراعاة البعد الأخلاقي والقيمي عند استخدام المعلومات. في هذا العالم المترابط الذي نطلق عليه القرية الكونية أو القرية الصغيرة، نستطيع الوصول إلى المعلومات بسهولة، ولكن التحدي هو كيف نستطيع أن ننقح ونضمن أن تكون هذه المعلومات بالفعل صادقة وحقيقية وفاعلة. وبالتالي هناك كثير من المنصات التفاعلية والوسائط المختلفة يمكن سبر غورها للوصول إلى هذا، وهو جزء لا يتجزأ من مفهوم الثقافة المعلوماتية والإعلامية، والتي تلعب دور البوصلة التي تقود اتجاهنا ووجهتنا ونحن نخوض عباب بحر المعلومات المتلاطم الأمواج، ونغوص بين ثنايا محتوى وسائط المعرفة المتنوعة كما ونوعا. ليس هذا فحسب، بل إنها تمكننا أيضا من تمييز ما هو حقيقي عما هو خيال، ثم إصدار أحكام مستنيرة في المواقف الحياتية المختلفة. للحديث حول هذا الموضوع بشكل أعمق، يسعدنا دعوة الخبيرة الدكتورة بيجي نزومو للحديث حول قيمة ودور الثقافة المعلوماتية والإعلامية في عصر المعلومات وما بعده. ولكن قبل أن تعطى الكلمة لها، يسعدني أن أقدم البروفيسورة كلارا تشو، وكما قلت أن لها كثير من الأنشطة، منها لعل من أبرزها منحة مورتنسون وأكاديمية نسيج لمعايشة لمدة شهر في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية تحت مظلة مركز مورتنسون التابع جامعة إلينوي في أربانا شامبين، والتي يعد برنامج دراسات المعلومات هو رقم 1 في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، فنحن سعداء بهذا التعاون. دكتورة كلارا هي مديرة مركز مورتنسون لعلوم المكتبات، وهي أستاذ متميز بمركز مورتنسون بجامعة إلينوي أربانا شامبين، وهي خبيرة في تطوير الحلول المناسبة لتقديم حلول المكتبات المناسبة والمنصفة في المكتبات الديناميكية وذات التعددية الثقافية. هي أيضا باحثة في احتياجات المعلومات للمجتمعات ذات التعددية الثقافية في ظل المجتمعات الدولية والتقنية. لديها خبرة كبيرة في مجال التدريب وخدمات المكتبات، وتقلدت الكثير من المناصب في مؤسسات كالإفلا والACRL وإلى غيره. ضيفتنا الأساسية التي سوف تقدم لها دكتور كلارا هي دكتور بيجي نزومو. هي عضو بالاتحاد الدولي لجمعيات ومؤسسات المكتبات الإفلا واللجنة الدائمة للشعوب متعددة الثقافات. هي أيضا اختصاصية مبادرات المكتبات الدولية، وتشغل منصب كبير معاوني البرنامج الدولي للمكتبات التابع لمركز مورتنسون بجامعة إلينوي أربانا شامبين بالولايات المتحدة، وهي منسقة لجنة اهتمامات الطلبة الدوليين التابعة لجمعية مكتبات الكليات والمكتبات البحثية. حاصلة دكتور نزومو على درجة الدكتوراه في المكتبات من جامعة ويستنسون في كندا، وهي محررة عمود في Journal of Library Administration. I will not take too much time to introduce in this webinar. I give the lead to Professor Clara to introduce herself in English for our attendees who speak English, and also to introduce our main guest, Dr. Nzomo. Please, Dr. Clara.
Greetings, everyone, from the University of Illinois, where the Mortenson Center for International Library Programs is. I'm the director of the center, and I've just shared on link our particular URL. So you can learn a little bit more about the Mortenson Center for International Library Programs. Our mission is to strengthen international ties among libraries and librarians through the promotion of international education, understanding, and peace. And it's very exciting for us to expand our collaborations. The 4 areas of work that we do are related to training, professional development, partnerships with library and information organizations, and hosting visitors. And as I indicated, expanding our partnerships means that this webinar is being done in collaboration, not only with our longtime collaborators and partners, the Naseej Academy, but also with the Saudi Library and Information Association. And so it's wonderful to be able to connect with Dr. Fayez Al-Otab at this particular webinar, and we look forward to continued conversations. It's been an official partnership with the Nasiej Academy since 2017, and working with a wonderful team of Dr. Abdallah Metwali and Mr. Saeed Ali. And so the partnership started even before then, where we did a lot of informal engagement, supported each other's work. But in 2017, then Nasiej Academy took the step to collaborate and offer the travel grant to attend the Mortenson Center Associates program. And so this is a wonderful grant program that you can look into and consider participating to advance your professional development. And one of the things that's important in all of our work is to continue to engage and learn and support each other as a community of library and information professionals. And so it's wonderful that our colleague, Peggy Nzomo, is able to present today's webinar, and she will be leading us for the next hour to do this work. And so now with the opportunity to greet you, please do consider us for other areas of interest that you might have. The information and media literacy is one area that Peggy is leading the center's work in. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Peggy, who joined the Mortenson Center last year after many years working as a global education librarian at Kent State University. So I'll turn it over to you, Peggy.
Hi, everybody. Greetings. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are at. So glad to be with all of you. Thank you, Dr. Clara, and a big shukran to our co-hosts or our collaborators, Nasiej Academy and the Saudi Library Association. We are so glad for this collaboration that brings us all together, and thank you again for having me for this important webinar. Information literacy and media literacy are important topics that I think we all, especially in the LIS field, the Library and Information Science field, should be concerned about or should be talking about to our users. And so without much further ado, I'm going to start the presentation. Okay, so the topic for today, as you may have seen when you registered, is the value and role of media and information literacy in the information age and beyond. We are no longer in the information age, we are now in the Internet of Things age, but the information age continues to dominate our world today. So that's why the beyond is there. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. And I would like to begin today by recognizing and acknowledging that we join you from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in the USA, which is on the lands of the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankashaw, Ware, Miami, Muscatine, Ottawa, Sauk, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Chickasaw nations. These lands were the traditional territory of these native nations prior to their forced removal. These lands continue to carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity. As a member of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, I take the responsibility to acknowledge the peoples of these lands, as well as the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of our institution. I want to get a little bit of a pulse for where you are at in terms of information literacy. This will guide my presentation a little bit, and also in media literacy. So I'm going to start off with some polls. So I'm going to start with a poll that asks you your knowledge on media literacy and you can, 1 is for little knowledge and 5 is advanced knowledge or a lot of knowledge. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to just enter in your selection there. I can see 3 is about average. A lot of people are right there. Still waiting a little bit till we get to at least half of the participants, and then we can maybe stop it. Media literacy, 42%. Okay. All right, we are about at the 100 mark. So I'm gonna stop right here and end the poll, the results. Yes, so we are at about 43% for about average. That's where most of you fell. And then we're gonna go to the next poll, and this one tests your knowledge of information literacy. So
Yes.
this is information literacy. Again,
Give
1
his
is
comment on
for little, and 5 is for a lot of knowledge or advanced knowledge. We are at 63. Again, I'm going to stop it at about 100. So please get in there and give in your vote. Going to let this go a little bit further because I know most of you are more familiar with information literacy than media literacy, as I guessed. But I'm going to end the poll right now. Thank you so much for voting the results. So it looks like with information literacy, a little bit more of the advanced, and also at 4 and then at 3, that's where most of you are falling. So hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about these 2 concepts, both information literacy and media literacy. All right, I'm going to continue now with the presentation. Why isn't it presenting? Okay, so to give you a little bit of an agenda or an overview of what we're going to do today, I'm going to give some definitions for information literacy and media literacy, show the importance of information literacy and some context for information literacy or where you can use information literacy skills, the importance of media literacy, the media literacy context, and then I'll share some resources in information literacy and media literacy, which also you'll find on these slides as we will share them. And then I will end, of course, with a Q&A that Professor Abdallah and I will do together. And then I'll also end with just telling you a little bit of how the Mortenson Center can support you in information literacy instruction. All right, as far as definition, this definition is taken from the ACRL. ACRL is Association of College and Research Libraries in the USA. It is a part of the Association for American Association for Libraries, so the ALA. Information literacy is the set of integrated abilities encompassing the reflective discovery of information, understanding how that information is produced and valued, and the use of information in creating new knowledge and participating ethically in communities of learning. So ethically just means in the proper way or in a lawful way. That is taken from the ACRL Framework for Information Literacy for Higher Education, a document that I will share later on as we go along. Media literacy, and this definition is taken from the National Association of Media Literacy Education, encompasses the practices that allow people to access, critically evaluate, and create or manipulate media and communication. And later on, I'll go a little bit into detail about the differences between the two, but they are very, very related. Again, the issue here, you will see phrases like evaluate, critically evaluate or manipulate or use or share amongst the two concepts. What are some uses of information literacy? Information literacy has been shown to be a prerequisite for lifelong learning, personal growth, and empowerment. We hear about knowledge is power, and information literacy, not information literacy, but information sometimes is compared to knowledge. When you have knowledge or when you have information, you have power. And that's why when you have information literacy skills that allow you to acquire knowledge or information, then you are empowered. It has been shown to be a prerequisite for active, effective, and responsible citizenship and civic engagement. So that just has to be to do with you being able to participate in politics, let's say in voting. So being able to be effective and practice politics responsibly or be engaged in politics in a responsible way. It has been shown to be effective in patient engagement. Nowadays, doctors want their patients to be a little bit engaged in their care, asking the proper questions and reading up about a condition you might have before you go and see the doctor. So information literacy skills are important in patient engagement. Self-actualization, as I mentioned earlier, when you have knowledge, when you have information, you empower yourself. Self-actualization in your profession or even in just how you relate to people. It has been shown also to be important in social inclusion and social justice. So caring about justice, social justice and issues, being able to be empowered in practicing, in being able to be engaged in those issues also. And then one that we are all aware of, especially if you're in higher education, is in student engagement and active learning. We encourage our students to develop their information literacy skills so they can do better research, so they can write better papers, so they can be engaged more in their learning. And then one that is very dear to me is information literacy skills are important for effective advocacy engagement. And we all self-advocate. Many times. We are just not aware that we are self-advocating. So advocacy is something that we are all familiar with. Well, information literacy can help you gain the skills that you need to be an effective advocate. The ACRL framework, which I mentioned before, and I'm going to go through two frameworks. There are different frameworks out there, but the one that we use mostly is, again, the ACRL framework, and then I'll mention a little bit one from CILIP. It has 6 frames: information creation as a process, searching as a strategic exploration, research as inquiry, scholarship as a conversation, authority is constructed and contextual, and information has value. And these frames are very related, and they focus not so much on individual skills, they focus on a disposition that you should have as somebody who's information literate. And I'll go through each one of these much later on. The CILIP, which is the Library and Information Association in the UK, and it stands for the Chartered Institute for Library and Information Professionals, has 5 contexts, and these are very self-explanatory. And they mention this context where information literacy skills are so important. Information literacy skills are important in the workplace. They're important when it comes to health literacy. They're important in citizenship, as I mentioned, in voting and participating in politics. They're important in everyday life. Information is all over around us in our everyday life. And then they're important in education. So going over a little bit each one of the frames that I mentioned from the ACRL, information creation as a process, this is something that we teach our students. So when you are doing research, there are processes. These processes are iterative, but you can always also go back. So we have research, writing, revising, and then you have the final product and dissemination, and at each one, and then the byproducts. At each one of these stages, information literacy skills are important. So with the byproducts, then after you have the skills to do the research, the writing, and the revising, then you can produce a good article, you can write a book, you can present at a conference, you can do a blog, a web page. All of these are byproducts that you can have as a student or as a person even, based on your information literacy skills and having gone through this process. Searching as a strategic exploration. I think most of us are spoiled in this age of AI where you just ask Google or you ask Siri for a question and you get the results straight up. But sometimes when you're writing a research paper, then we teach our students that you do have to search strategically. You don't just go to Google. I mean, they will do that. They will go to Google in the first place. But if you're looking for information in the proper way, and depending on your information need, you will have to search strategically. So if you're looking for a book, you're not just going to go to Google. You may want to start with the library catalog. If you're just looking for something on the internet, like you just have an information need, like maybe for a recipe or something to troubleshoot your computer, you may want to go to Google. Yes, that's okay. You can use a search engine. But when you're writing a scholarly paper and you need research articles, or you need scholarly articles, scholarly information, then you want to go to a database. So we teach students that they have to search strategically based on their information need. Scholarship as a conversation has something to do with how you share information. And I think sometimes we forget this because when you're writing, you just think you're writing. But if you look at scholarship as a conversation, and that what you're writing is going to be read as something that's coming from you. For instance, if you think about it as a conversation, if you were talking to somebody one-on-one and you made a statement like, I invented basketball, I created the iPhone, or I'm the genius behind Netflix, people will think you're ridiculous. Like, you know, that's not true, of course. But I think all the time we do this. When we are writing papers, we posture as though this information is ours when it is not. And so we always have to remember that when you're writing that paper, when you are sharing that information, you consider it as a conversation. And there are ethical ways to contribute to the scholarship conversation. Authority is contextual and constructed. This just has to do with the information that you use and trying to evaluate that information. On the internet, we find all kinds of information because we can all contribute to the internet. We do social media. We can even contribute articles to Wikipedia. So we have the good, the bad, and the questionable. You need information literacy skills to be able to tell apart each one of these. What is good information? What is bad information? What is questionable information? So that has to do with what is credible. And then consider the context. Consider your information need and how you're going to use that information. So for instance, if you're looking for a recipe, if that information is coming from your grandma or your grandmother, that might be okay. So consider that context. But if you're looking for medical information, your grandma might not be the best source of that information. So consider the context, and it is constructed depending on the context. Think about fake news, fact, and opinion. Can you tell these apart? Information literacy skills will help you to tell what is fake news, what is fact, and what is opinion. So for students, we teach them how to evaluate information on the web. As I said, there's so much information on the web. Sometimes you don't know where to begin, what to believe and what not to believe. And here's some criteria. I may not go through all of them, but here's some criteria that we teach students to use to evaluate information on the web. So for instance, authority. You can ask yourself, who is the author of this article I'm reading? What are their credentials? Do they have an affiliation? And then you can ask yourself, is the information current? Is it up to date? Is the page updated regularly? Credibility, can you verify that information somewhere? Does it have citations? Objectivity, is the information presented with a minimum bias, or is it designed to sway you? A lot of things on the internet are designed to sway your opinion. Is the page full of advertisements? Then they're trying to sell you something. And then look at navigability. Does the page have a lot of grammatical errors? Is there a lot of broken links? If you see a page like that, then it's questionable. You want to look at it carefully and see if it's something that you can actually use for a paper, or depending on your information need. And then coverage. What you use for a paper in high school is not the same information that you're going to use for a paper in writing a research paper in college. So how detailed or in-depth is the information? And then there are more tips that we give students that, like for instance, domain name, it matters. If it's a .gov, then you know it's a site that's coming from the government. If it's a .edu, you know it's coming from a school or a university, so it's going to be more credible. A .com site is a commercial site. So the information there, you may need to look at it a little bit more carefully. And so if you want to use these tips that I'm telling you about, you can use the Google Advanced mode instead of just going to that one search bar, and then you can select what domain you want to use. Wikipedia, I think a lot of librarians or LIS professionals tell their students, hey, don't go to Wikipedia. And I understand that it's because Wikipedia, anybody can edit an article or author an article on Wikipedia, but sometimes Wikipedia is okay to use. The only thing is how you use it. If you're using a Wikipedia article, be sure to consult the references and to see where is that information being gotten from. Are there citations that verify that information that is on there? As for research as inquiry, again, this just shows the process that you go through when you're writing a paper, how you'll have an introduction, objective, a literature review, methodology, results, and conclusion. And when you teach research as inquiry to students, for instance, we want to teach them how to even formulate a research question, because this determines then how you write your paper. And a lot of students sometimes don't know how to formulate that research question. So that frame prepares students to do all of that. This is my favorite of the frames because it underscores how information has value, and yet we don't even think about it. I think there's a quote, and I forget who has said that quote, that information wants to be free, but it is not free. Information is not free, and sometimes students or all of us think, oh, this information is just there, but information has a monetary value to it. Students don't realize, for instance, that they pay for the information they get through their tuition. So I don't know if any of you have watched or know about a movie that is called Paywall, the scholarship of the business of scholarship. That's a good movie to watch. It's open access, you can watch it, but it will tell you how much in the publishing industry, there's a lot of money that is involved. So information has a monetary value to it. It's not free. And then of course, information has value for the grade. When you get good information, credible information, you can use it to write a good research paper. Workplace related information, to do your work or to do research related to your work. And then there's personal interest. We all go to Google to find out health information, recipes, or do it yourself, or troubleshoot our computer. And then of course there's the leisure and entertainment, social media, movies, and news. Information has value, and we all need information. Now I'm getting into the media literacy part of it. And I'm going to start here with this quote of a term that was introduced to us during the pandemic by the WHO General Director, Dr. Tedros. And he said of the infodemic, he said, we are not just fighting an epidemic, we are fighting an infodemic. And this term has now been defined by many others. And I like this definition by Neem and Bertie, and it says an infodemic may be defined as an excessive amount of information concerning a problem. The problem here was the pandemic, such that the solution is made more difficult. The end result is an anxious public that finds it difficult to distinguish between evidence-based information and a broad range of unreliable misinformation. Boy, did we go through this during the pandemic. There was a lot of this, and you just wouldn't know what to believe, what is evidence-based and what is unreliable, what is true, what is fact and what is opinion. Related to the infodemic, then we have such terms as disinformation and misinformation. And I'm gonna go through these terms and define them for you a little bit and give some examples. Disinformation is a part of the infodemic, and it is defined as false information which is intended to mislead, especially propaganda issued by a government organization to a rival power or the media. It may be not a government organization, just politics in general during political cycles like election cycles, during war, like what we are going through right now. There's a lot of disinformation, and I'll give an example of that. And here are some examples on the right. There are types of misinformation and disinformation, and they're just examples that you can look at on your own. Here's an example of disinformation, as I mentioned, especially during election cycles, during civic war, during war, like right now during the war in Israel and the Israel-Palestinian war. This was just in the news not too long ago. A group of 67 X accounts, formerly Twitter accounts, were found to have spread and coordinated. So there's the intention right there, disinformation about the Israel-Hamas war. So this is something that happens in every country, especially during political cycles like election time. Misinformation on the other hand, it's similar, but it's a little bit different because sometimes it's not intentional. Misinformation is false or inaccurate information, especially that which is intended to deliberately deceive. But as I mentioned, sometimes misinformation is shared in innocence. Like you get something on your WhatsApp and then you forward it without really knowing that it is inaccurate information. An example of that, again, pandemic, there was a lot of misinformation about even cures. One that I heard of was that the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine was going to contain a microchip. I don't know if anybody else had that, but I had it. And this one was being circulated a lot on WhatsApp. And it had this nice looking picture that looked really, really credible about Russia unleashing 500 lions in the streets. And I don't know if any of you saw this. And now I'm going to pause here and ask you to share in the chat if any misinformation that you may have encountered, especially during the pandemic. I'm going to pause a little bit and see what you can share in the chat. Are they able to share in the chat? It's in Arabic, so I might not be able to read all of it, but I'm sure many of you encountered false information.
There is some comments about using some type of herbs or this as a medicine.
Yes.
So this is part of it.
Yeah. One that I had
I can
also
share one in my mind, just jumping in my mind like that.
Sure.
Just saying that there is some or there is some big difference between the IQ for women comparing with the men, which I do not agree, by the way.
Yeah. That's misinformation right there. Yeah, I had one during the pandemic that you could use vodka as sanitizer, hand sanitizer. So, there was a lot. I'm going to go back now. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts in the chat. I'm now going to go back to this definition of media literacy, because then it compares to what I've just described with misinformation and disinformation. So media literacy, again, enables you, allows people to access ethically, access and critically evaluate and create or manipulate media and communication. When you think about media, we have media on our phones, on our tablets, on our computers, and it could be print media as well. Well, media literacy allows you to manipulate all of that, and also even how you create it, and then also to critically evaluate all of that. So I'm going to go back to that definition there. So given that definition, what are some uses of media literacy? of course, it combats misinformation and disinformation. So when you read those types of things, if you are media literate, you're able to look at it critically and ask yourself the right questions. It helps restore the information order. We talked about the infodemic. And so if you are media literate, then you can help restore that information order by being careful about what you even share. It fosters critical thinking skills. Again, critically evaluate what you're reading or what you're sharing. It encourages ethical information sharing practices. It plays a role in peace education and promotion. When you talk about peace promotion, we can talk about a peace from within, not just peace as in terms of societal peace or amongst nations, but it can be even inner peace. And that's where the cyberbullying part comes through. Especially for young ones. Here we call it K through 12. I don't know in your countries if you call it primary school. There's a lot of cyberbullying. And so media literacy needs to be taught to these young ones so that they can counter cyberbullying, know what to believe, what not to believe, and what to share and how to share it. It can play a role in addressing extremism. So hate speech and all of that. If you are media literate, you are not going to share those types of things, or you will know how to critically address some of these things. And then, of course, it leads to better health outcomes. If you are information and media literate, then you're able to evaluate some of the information that comes across as credible health information. UNESCO is one of the bodies that is very strong, and we know, of course, it's worldwide. It's very strong as far as media and information literacy, and it has given this very snapshot of the importance of media and information literacy. It says media and information literacy is a prerequisite for the sustainable development of open, plural, inclusive, and participatory knowledge societies and the civic institutions, organizations, communities, and individuals. So this is a personal responsibility for each one of us here, individuals which comprise these societies. The UNESCO actually just very recently came up with a plan of action to combat disinformation, and I will share that again amongst the resources that I will share later after this presentation. So it's very, very involved in media literacy education. The UNESCO website has good resources on media and information literacy education. I'm going to go a little bit into another organization, which is IFLA. Most of us here who are LIS professionals know about IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations, and it has shared some infographics that are important, and I think I use this even with my students, and I forward them even to my relatives on social media or on WhatsApp. So one that has been very, very helpful for me is how to spot fake news, because sometimes you have all this news content coming at you and you're not able to tell which one is credible and which one is not. And it is available on the IFLA website in more than 50 languages. There's an Arabic version over there. It looks like this, and it has just different aspects or evaluation criteria that you can use to gauge whether a news content or news information or news article is credible or not. Again, it says consider the source. Is this from a government source? Who is putting out that information? What kind of newspaper is it? Is it a magazine? Is it a journal article? So consider the source. Read beyond. Again, we saw that when we did evaluation of information on the web. Read beyond the headlines. Sometimes headlines are meant to be catchy. They're called clickbaits. They're just meant for you to click on it. And once you're on it, you don't know what you're going to get. So go beyond the headlines. Read what it is about. What's the whole story? Read beyond just what you see on a headline. Check the author. Again, we went through this with evaluation of information on the web. What are the author's credentials? Is it even a real person? We have bots and chatbots writing all kinds of things, especially now with AI. You don't know who is writing this article. Is it a real person? Are the authors credible? What is their expertise? Are they affiliated with an institution? Are there some supporting sources, things that maybe other places where you can find the same information being presented in that as news? Check the date. This one, I have fallen victim of it. You find something that occurred in 1999, and of course, nothing is new in this world sometimes. And somebody reposts old news, and then it just looks like it's new news when it is not. So again, checking the date to make sure that it's relevant to current events. Is it a joke? Again, the Russian lions I shared there. At times, somebody shares something as a joke, and then it takes a life of its own, and it's being forwarded and shared, and yet it was just supposed to be a joke. So look at it. Is it outlandish? It might be satire. Check your biases. Now, this one, we are all guilty of it. And there are other terms that are used here, like confirmation bias or filter bubbles. These are terms that you may have heard. So it is where you just go to sources that confirm what you believe. This is especially true in terms of politics. So like here in the US, we have two major parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. So if you're a Democrat, for instance, you only go to those sources that are going to confirm what you want, and you never check the other side. So when you read news articles, try and go to both sides of the issue and see what the Republicans are saying. If you are a Democrat, check your biases, ask the experts, and here we are. LIS professionals, we are important. We are part of the experts. I hate the term gatekeepers. We are not gatekeepers. We are not trying to keep anybody from getting information, but we can help you sift through the whole gamut of information to see which is more credible. And so if you're a student and you are using, or teach your students, if they are trying to use an article or they found something on the web and they're not sure, encourage them to ask a librarian or consult with the fact-checking sites, and I'll share a lot of this. I love this one. IFLA also came up after the pandemic with another infographic. It's very, very similar to the one I've just mentioned on spotting fake news. But this one, the one that is added on there is that little I at the end there, which I love. It's the thing that is not on the fake news one. It says, look before you share. That is encouraging ethical sharing of information. I think so many of us, we just forward stuff without really thinking about, is it true? Is it fact or is it opinion? Is it fake news? So look before you share, especially in terms of health information, because health information sometimes it can lead to, if it's false information, it can even be fatal. So you want to look before you share. This is a new one that has come up also with IFLA infographic. It's an infographic for fake emails, how to spot a fake emails. And boy, do we all need this one. I think we all encounter this, especially in the workplace. We are inundated with a lot of information, emails in our inboxes, and we just need some time to look closer and see if it's worth clicking on that link or clicking on that attachment. And a lot of organizations have come up with ways to warn people about phishing emails or spam, and they can send out an email and say, hey, if you get this email, please don't click on it. But there are times you also need to do that work yourself, because sometimes this will come into your, excuse me, this will come into your inbox. So these are some criteria that you can use to tell whether an email is credible or not. I like especially that last one again. Is it asking for personal information? There's a lot of fake emails out there that ask you for bank information, and it can lead to identity theft. So those types of emails, look out for them. Again, this IFLA infographic for fake emails, this is information in everyday life. most of us have emails now. This is something that you can share with your students or with your colleagues or even with your family. All right, okay, so we've gone through all of that, and now I'm gonna talk a little bit about just the differences between information literacy and media literacy. I think most of us are asking ourselves that question. And to be brief about this, these two concepts are so integrated that sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. It's not, they're not mutually exclusive. That's what I want to say. Information literacy is the umbrella that encompasses all these other literacies. You can talk about digital literacy. You can talk about health literacy. You can talk about data literacy, news literacy, media literacy. What do all those things have? Information. And so information literacy is the umbrella that encompasses all of that. So that's the definition and scope. Media literacy, however, has something to do with how we manipulate and access and use media around us or communication around us. And so the media literacy, the scope might be a little bit smaller, not in terms of the content, not in terms of the media or the formats. Media literacy has many formats, but just in terms of information literacy has information, covers all kinds of media and all kinds of formats. And that's because information is all around us. It's ubiquitous. You look at an object and it's an object, but it has information in it. And so as far as scope, information literacy is the encompassing umbrella of all these literacies. Goals and outcomes, again, a lot of similarities. Information literacy will prepare you to ethically use information, to evaluate the information that you read, and then as you become an information literate individual, then you can help some other people in how they access information, and you are careful in sharing what you share. You're careful in determining what to share and what not to share, what you consider credible and what not to consider credible. As far as challenges and opportunities, again, about the same things. I would mention maybe in this age of AI, again, AI has a lot of opportunities. You can get information with a snap of a finger, a lot of information coming at you. You can ask ChatGPT to write that paper for you. So a lot of opportunities like that. But then come the challenges. Are you going to use that information just as it is, or are you going to credit wherever source you got it from? Or if you ask students as far as academic integrity, are they learning anything when they use ChatGPT to write their papers? So those are the challenges right now, and I think a lot of us in the LIS field are grappling with all these things that have come up with AI and the opportunities that it presents, but as well the challenges that come up with it. Relationship and integration, again, as I mentioned, these two concepts are so interrelated, integrated. They are not mutually exclusive. They are very, very related. And so and this is from a source, actually a LinkedIn collaborative article. In LinkedIn, you can find all kinds of things. A collaborative article is an article where even you can contribute to it. And so again, using these types of things with an eye of, hey, it's just somebody like me who's contributing to that. But that's the source right there, and the link is right there. You can read more about it. Okay, I'm going to end here a little bit with just sharing some media literacy resources, fact-checking websites. We talked about, especially when it comes to news, you want to fact-check what you're reading. Agence France-Presse, which is AFP, has a fact-checker. And what I love about Agence France-Presse, it is presented in different languages. So even you'll find there Arabic. All Sides is also a good website, and it presents, especially in terms of politics, it will present the different sides of an issue. So especially if it's a controversial issue, it will present both sides of the issue. Factcheck.org, News Literacy Project, Truth or Fiction, all of these are websites that you can use as far as checking news.
If you allow me, Peggy, just
Yes. Yes.
just announcing that for the attendees.
Yes.
If they have any question, they can just write it down in the question and answer box or the chat. And at the end of the presentation, we will collect even the question if it is Arabic. So we will collect it and then direct to you and Dr. Clara as well. Sorry for interruption.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then as far as media literacy resources, again, organizations, these are credible organizations, Action for Media. Some of them are Canadian, American. There's even one from Australia. So these are credible resources that you can use as far as finding about media, finding resources to use in your classes or for yourself on media literacy. Again, a major one that I would underscore is UNESCO. UNESCO has very good resources on media literacy. And then there's even tools for teaching media literacy. If you are especially a school librarian, media literacy is so important. And these are tools that are mentioned on these websites. You'll have lesson plans. In the state of Illinois, here in the US now, media literacy is actually required in the curriculum for K through 12. In the primary schools, they have to teach media literacy. This is how important this has become, especially here in the United States, and I'm sure in other parts of the world. So these are some tools that you can use if you're looking for tools to teach media literacy to either your students or other people. Other resources, ACRL framework on information literacy. I don't know if, can you, so there's a document, the document I showed, yes, okay, so Clara is gonna share in the chat a link to the framework for information literacy. And then there's the CILIP context of information literacy. Those two documents I mentioned at the beginning. She's going to share those in the chat. And then these are some others that you can use. The ACRL framework sandbox, I love that because librarians find a way to post lesson plans and assignments they're giving the students, and just a lot of assessments and evaluations and things like that. Activities, if you want your class to be, you know, to encourage active learning, activities that you can use in your classes when you're teaching information literacy. The ACRL framework sandbox is a place that you can go to do that. And then online, sometimes you don't even have to create your own information literacy course. There's an open course in multiple languages. It's called Open Online Media Literacy Course. UNESCO has media information literacy for policymakers. If you're a policymaker, you can do that. And then I don't know what learning management systems you use, but Canvas has a course, an information literacy course that you can also use. And then online also, and this is information I can also, links that I can share much later if you get in touch with me, there's pre-tests. So like now you can give a pre-test to your students to test their information literacy skills. So there's all these resources that you can access online, and I'll be able to share those with you. I don't know how much time I still have. Okay, so I'm going to go through here what the Mortenson Center can do, or how the Mortenson Center can support you.
You have enough time.
I'm fine. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. If you have a course that's online, or you have a way of developing a course online, we can help you develop a course online, and then we can maintain presence in your online course, just to help you as you start off. And then as you get comfortable with it, then we'll let you do it on your own. And I'll show you a little bit some of the frameworks, or some of the ways we use to create courses, like RD is an acronym that I'll go over if I have time. So we support instruction librarians who are trying to teach media literacy and information literacy. We provide that support, and we are trying to develop a resource tool right now with an international focus. So like the resources that I mentioned, they may not necessarily have an international focus, but the tool that we are going to develop is going to have an international focus. And then what we always warn people is you don't just take like what is being used in the United States and then use it in your class. You have got to customize it to your own students. You always want to be user-centered. The context in your country might not be the context in the United States. If you're giving examples, you want to give examples from your country, for instance. So that's why this tool is going to be a little bit different than what you just generally find on the web. We're going to try to make it have an international focus. We'll have sample online courses, examples of information literacy frameworks, how to develop learning objectives, lesson plans, assessment tools, and how to do course evaluations. And now I'm going to pause here and ask a little bit, and you can put this in the chat, and I'll ask Professor Abdallah again to help me out in reading the Arabic. What are some ways you want Mortenson Center, or you think Mortenson Center could support you, or how we could partner with you in your information literacy teaching or instruction? What are some ways we could partner with you?
Thank you, Peggy, for this, because you got it from my mind. I will just leave it for the question and answer, but it's good just as a part of what we are here to talk about. I would think that the most important part is about just developing courses and curriculum related to this.
Mm-hmm.
And these courses, I know that the pedagogy and how the structure and this are, but I think that the cultural touch or the subcultural content
absolutely
is very important to be a main factor in developing such curriculum or courses. This is one. The other one, I think also it's very important to identify the characteristics of the target student or audience as well.
Yes.
This is very important, especially for those students they traveling abroad to the other side of the ocean.
Right.
I assume that they are willing just to engage in the community there and participating. And I think Mortenson grant, and I think Clara will agree with me 100%, is a very excellent model or example for that. The student or researcher just traveling once they already won this grant. They came with a very, very interesting experience, and they can transfer it to their colleagues. So as a short answer for your question, I think building the curriculum courses is very important, considering the culture and subculture, and as well just trying to have this mentality of accepting the other and learning how to communicate your idea with a very peaceful and also engaging way. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. You're just hitting on the things that I'm passionate about and I like to talk about. So before I came to the Mortenson Center, I worked at Kent State University, as Dr. Chu mentioned, as a global education librarian. And what that meant is I was the librarian for international students. One of the things I always used to encourage international students is you have something to say. Don't just copy what the Western world is doing. You have something to say. So when you give examples, even when you're writing a paper, write examples from your country. And this is how we create global peace and understanding. Americans are not just interested in you parroting back what they've written. They're interested in hearing about your culture as well. And so I always encourage international students, take pride in your culture, in where you're coming from, share your perspectives. And so again, when you're teaching information literacy, it goes back to that scholarship as a conversation. we are tired of just having conversation in the Western world. There is something from the global South. And that's why I'm also, I have a journal that I am an editor of, Global Perspectives Journal. I always want to hear what are voices from the global South? What are we saying from the global South? And so, teaching students to take pride in what they have to say and in their own culture. Okay, so what are some other ways? I think we can move on. Can we move on? You can read the chat or, okay. Again, this is not the end. You can always get in touch with us after this and let us know how we can support you. As far as information literacy instruction, many of us are familiar with the one-shot sessions where you get invited into a professor's class and you can give maybe just a one-shot session. It's not as effective, but you take what you're given. And then what we encourage right now with the support that we have is embedded instruction or curriculum mapping, where you work with a professor to embed information literacy in their courses. Because we know that students, if they're not paying for something, they're not going to be very invested. So they need that incentive. As long as they know that they're paying for the course and they're going to need a grade afterwards, then that works better for us as librarians in having that embedded information literacy instruction in a course. And a more effective one, especially if you're going to use the ACRL framework, is a credit-bearing course. Again, a credit-bearing course just encourages students to be more invested. They're paying for it and they're going to get a grade. So they are more invested in what they do or in what you're teaching. And then there's online tools, asynchronous, that are self-directed. We have LibGuides. I don't know if many of you use LibGuides. Again, those are things that we can help you create LibGuides that students can complete on their own. I mentioned the online information literacy tests. SILI is a model that we use every day. It's just that we don't mention it or we don't call it that, but that's specialized information literacy instruction. This could be an instruction that is specific to a subject area. So for instance, you're teaching information literacy to business students or teaching information literacy to law students or to medical students. It's going to look a little bit different. So that's specialized information literacy instruction. PLA models, personalized information literacy instruction. Librarians do it all the time. They call it research consultations. This is where you work one-on-one with a student. Again, we can help you develop those, personalize the information literacy to the student. So these are all instruction models that we talk about and we could help you develop or design. I mentioned ADDIE as a model. ADDIE as a model, this is especially for if you're doing an online credit-bearing course, and it's a model that's been used in other subject areas. It's not just for information literacy. So it just has to do with analyzing the need for the information literacy course, and then you design, you develop the course, you implement, and then important, it's always good to evaluate, not just the students if they got it, but evaluate the course, evaluate your teaching methods, evaluate the content of the course. So ADDIE is a model that we use especially if you're doing a credit-bearing course. And it's an online one. Okay. And then this one idea is one that you could use for an embedded class. I mentioned attaching yourself, or for curriculum mapping, attaching yourself to a course that you can embed your information literacy in. And it starts with you interviewing. So interview the instructor, ask them about when is it that you're going to have a research paper. Then you can go into the class and talk about writing research papers and how to find, how to search for articles, for instance, how to do a literature review, how to do a systematic review. So interview the instructor, find out what their needs are, and then you design the course, identify the information literacy goals and objectives, and then identify the content, and then you can, with the help of the instructor, embed your content into the course. And then again, it's so important to assess what you're teaching. You assess the course effectiveness, assess what you're teaching. And the assessment is not just for yourself, it's also for the students to evaluate you and to evaluate the content they are getting. You assess them with the assignments, but they also assess the content of the course. So these are two models that we would use to help you construct your information literacy instruction. And then here are just some references that I used and I mentioned in my presentation here. And again, I want to thank you, Shukran. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this partnership. And now I'm going to move on to a question and answer session, and Professor Abdallah will assist me in this one. I'm going to stop sharing now. Or just
Thank you,
this.
Dr. Peggy, so much. And I think this very interesting and rich presentation includes many parts that should be focusing in a separate webinar. But I'm sure that we have plenty of time just to receive questions as we have it there, and we encourage our attendees to send it written in the question and answer. If at the beginning, if Professor Clara need to elaborate or add something, please, before we just checking on the question and answer. Clara, yes?
No, so the only thing is to indicate what I just wrote, which is that Naseej Academy will be making the materials and a certificate of attendance available. And also there have been indications of initiatives that attendees are sharing, so we really appreciate those. And any materials that we receive or any information that you provide to us, we would like to also share it. So then it's not just amongst us, but available to anyone else, because this is the way that we can build on each other's work. And also there was indication of some curriculum development that some are interested in. So Dr. Peggy will be reviewing the chat to follow up as needed with any particular participants. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Clara, so much. And let's move quickly to the question, and you can help me, Clara, as well. Mainly, I will start as it's coming in order of the one of the questions that it's about the ethical part compared with the country part. So they need to have more elaboration from your side, Dr. Peggy, about how you link these to information literacy, the ethical part, and also the country focusing all over the world, for sure. Yes, Peggy?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So ethics has to do with laws. And here in the United States, for instance, we are big on intellectual property. So when somebody writes something or puts out information, they own that information. So if you use somebody else's information, it is good practice in the scholarship conversation to acknowledge where you got the source from, to acknowledge that person. You're having respect for that person's content or that person's information. And so you're citing them and saying, hey, this is where I got this information. And I've heard in some cultures that it's not right to use other people's content. But again, realizing that with information, it's a conversation that we all learn from each other. You need to situate your work with what has been said before in order to make it credible. So it's not wrong to use somebody else's work. You just have to say that you are using somebody else's work. I don't know if that answers your question. So, but that's where the ethics comes from. It comes from laws that have to do with intellectual property and copyright laws.
Perfect, perfect. If you, Clara, need just to elaborate, not just jump in and please.
I think that one of the things that has been pointed out by a participant is that a lot of what we know and the way that we do our practice is contextual. And so when it comes to ethics, then we may be guided by certain international basic frameworks, but then we need to interpret them for local context. And so whether it's ethical issues that are guided by our professional practice or our broader societal culture, and then the more specifics, if there are specific laws that guide the way that we consider something to be done correctly or incorrectly, and rights and wrongs. And so one of the things that's important is just to continue to focus on understanding how we practice locally as well as internationally.
Yes, thank you, Clara, so much. Actually, I received on the WhatsApp question, and there is some question also indeed, and this is something about, you mentioned Google and Alexa, Siri, and recently ChatGPT. So how do you see the best way to guide our students to evaluate these sources and to improve the critical thinking, not just getting answers?
I'm going to defer to...
This is the
Clara.
$1 million question, I guess.
She's good with AI, and so Clara, I'm gonna defer to you on this one.
So
Yes.
AI and all forms of AI are developing so quickly. And so sometimes we're waiting for somebody to tell us what to do. And there are resources, whether it's been offered by Naseej Academy, IFLA, any of the different associations. But what I would encourage is that there is the work that's being done, but it's important for all of us to be information prepared and information literate. And so one of the things that can be taught is to develop a course or a webinar, or not webinar, sorry, a instruction literacy on what is AI literacy. And then second, to form your own working group. And so with your team, then each of you take different aspects of the area of AI and library and information practice. Maybe somebody can take what are the developments of AI and information organization. Another team member can look at AI and teaching. Another one can look at AI and learning, and then have meetings, once every 2 weeks, once a month. So then you can share with each other. You don't need to be, perfect computer scientists, coders, programmers, but you just need to be aware of what are those developments and then share them with each other. And so by sharing those resources, then your whole team can be part of a learning process. And so that's how it's a simple way to stay on top of things because we're all learning, but at the same time, we can't wait for the experts to always give us the best information.
Perfect. There is another question here. It's in Arabic. It's talking about the flow of information. They need more digging in deep about how to avoid this, especially within the academic and research community. So the misinformation, the fake information within the research and academic community. More advice, more guidance.
Okay, I'm not quite sure I understand. So you're talking about misinformation and disinformation in
Yes.
the scholarly,
academic, yes.
in academic circles?
Yes.
Okay, I think when we talk about misinformation and disinformation, it's mostly in the news. But when it comes to scholarly content, there's ways to dispute, let's say, an article that is spreading misinformation. You can write a rebuttal of the article. You can write and say, hey, this author said this. We beg to agree because our own research showed something different. So again, it's a conversation and it's done ethically. You can respond to somebody who's spreading misinformation. I can give you an example of research that was done or an article that was put out about the causes of autism. And somebody put out information that said that the autism is caused by vaccinations. But now that has been refuted by more research. And so what other scholars have done is to put out information that refutes what was previously said. So that's what I can say about that.
Just to add an example, Dr. Peggy mentioned the infodemic and how the World Health Organization defined that term. And a response from the scientific community was for certain journals to form a community where their journals would intentionally be reviewing content so then they could address issues of the infodemic. So I think that in addition that the scholarly community is wanting to take this as something serious that they're concerned about and be not only as a response, as Dr. Peggy has said, be at the forefront when they're reviewing articles. So to be more focused on ensuring that they are taking more closer look when they're doing the review process.
Perfect. Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Peggy. I have a question. Mr. Hussein said that I have a question to Dr. Peggy regarding IFLA information literacy section. I am passionate about joining this section and I have submitted an application. Do you think that there is something more I have to do to join them?
Again, I'll defer to Clara.
Okay.
Clara might know a little bit more.
I know
Yes.
it's a very administrative question.
It is. It is more an administrative question. So the elections were held this past year. And so the election cycle will come again. And the election cycle is every 2 years. So it's important for you to look for information when the election cycle comes around again. And then that is when you can be part of the official standing committee. It's always possible to join and participate in the activities of any section, but to participate in developing the agenda, in developing resources and other work that IFLA is doing, then that's when you need to participate, present yourself for the election and be supported by a member institution, or if you join as an individual member, then you can also nominate yourself. And of course, once you nominate yourself, then it's not a sure thing that you will necessarily end up being elected. And it's also a commitment of yourself or for your organization to support you for 4 years, because there's a requirement of 4 years on a standing committee and for you to attend each of the meetings, annual conferences.
If I might
Perfect.
just add
thank you.
something.
Please. Yeah.
I was going to add something to that. I always encourage people to start small. Like, you don't have to be elected to be involved. So like with IFLA, you can start by just submitting a poster. Submit a poster. Sometimes some of the satellite meetings are free to attend. Attend those. Contribute to the newsletters from the standing committee, for instance. These are things that you can contribute to or be involved in without necessarily being elected to serve on a standing committee. I can tell you, for me, for a long time, I was involved in IFLA just as a member, and you don't have to pay your own membership. Maybe it might be through your country's library association. So being involved in your country's library association is a start, and then moving on to IFLA. And now I'm so glad that you can also attend IFLA online. They had the first time, I think, they did have a virtual component of it, which was cheaper for people to attend. So taking advantage of those kinds of opportunities.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I try to run for the question and make those not repeated before. So for information literacy programs, how could be evaluated the effectiveness of such a program? There is a criteria, standards, key performance indicator about this? The effectiveness of the information literacy program.
Okay, so I mentioned like those are some of the things that we can help with. So once you set up an information literacy course, you can have course evaluations and have feedback from especially students, or you can have an exam that tests them on some of the concepts that you have taught. If you see students are doing well, that's, you know, a good indicator that your course is effective. They're getting these things. There's research that is also being done right now, and a lot of it, I think, just needs to be fine-tuned a little bit more to attach information literacy outcomes to maybe the GPA, the grade point average, or to students' grades. But if you're offering a one-shot case where you go to a class only once, of course, the effectiveness of something like that cannot be measured very, very easily. So that's why I talk about, and I encourage librarians a lot to just try and embed themselves in a course. This way you can evaluate your effectiveness or whatever you taught, and you can teach a little bit more than just that what you teach in an hour, or to propose a course in your institution. If you propose a course in your institution, of course, that's easier to evaluate. So yeah, I understand there are some challenges there, especially if you're teaching the one shot.
Yes. Okay, I want Clara to elaborate and you too give any comment, because I think we're running out of time, and we're apologize for all attendees because we have to stick to our, but if you need to elaborate more about this question.
No.
No. Okay, I
Thank
have
you.
just, last question about could wrap up all what we can do. How do you see the future of the information literacy and media literacy within once we are talking about beyond, within the expected technology, which is usually not expected, by the way, but how do you see the future about this? How do you see this future with the role of the library, with a very wide definition of it? How is the future that you can see it out of the tunnel?
Oh, wow. Such a huge and important question. And I think one that we have to grapple with, especially in this age of AI, you know, and many of us have been told, oh, librarians are no longer important. I meet students sometimes who tell me, oh, I graduated and I never visited the library. And so you start wondering, you know, are we still relevant? Yes, we are.
Killing me,
yes,
by the
we
way.
Yeah, you know, you meet students who say that, yes, we are. And the issue is for us to reinvent our roles and to, that's why it's not just, hey, this is the information. It's teaching these skills and widening the context of these skills to make sure we are teaching students. Information literacy is important in the workplace. It's not just for when you are in school. You're going to need information literacy in advocacy, in the workplace, in the health context. Yeah. Widening, as librarians need to look at information literacy in the wider context and teach how relevant it is in this other context. Clara, I don't know if you want to add some on.
No, nothing from me. Are we closing, or did you want to take another?
I think we are trying to stick to the time frame that
okay.
So this
yes.
Also we are open to be connected by all our attendees. At the end, I would like to again confirm my thanks to you, Professor Clara and Dr. Peggy, and for this really rich and outstanding information that is very away from any fake or misinformation, that for sure that we we feel it by ourselves. Also, I'm happy just to send my regards to our partner, Saudi Library Information Association, and I'm so glad that Dr. Faiz Al-Atibi joined us, and for sure that there will be down the road more events and activities. We will share it together between Naseej Academy and Saudi Library and Information Association. As you are our guest, I will leave the final word for you, Clara and Peggy, and all our attendees. For sure enjoyed this one. Please, you are the close-up speaker. Please go ahead.
Sure. So nothing further from me, but an appreciation for the collaboration and to continue to develop our community of learning. So over to you, Dr. Peggy.
Okay. Nothing also from me except to say thank you, Shukran. Thank you for having us, and we really are appreciative of this collaboration and partnership, and we hope to continue and strengthen it further. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. شكرا لجميع الحضور. شكرا جزيلا، ونلقاكم إن شاء الله في فعاليات أخرى من فعاليات أكاديمية نسيج.